congressional subpoenas and all these different things that none of us care when it gets to kickoff, because it's time. Why would we? There's football to watch on the television tonight, and then we can start to determine how good the Rams are or how bad the Bills are relative to expectation. That means nothing. Expectations means absolutely nothing other than to give us something to talk about for the 4 months that we have without football.
What is the one thing that you are most excited to not have to talk about because we have actual football? For me, it's conference realignment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, but okay, that's fair, because I think you and I both felt it in real time. Like, it was exciting at first, and then there was so much, and it started to get so far down, and they really didn't do anything after beyond the initial moves that shocked everybody of USC and UCLA to the Big Ten.
Well, you know how I know football's back? The college football playoff extended to 12 teams on Friday, and we haven't mentioned it once.
We have not. See, that is the thing that I'm most excited to not talk about anymore. The administrative stuff, the paperwork. The paperwork is over, baby. Now it's time to grunt and drool and sweat and growl on the football field. Tackles. Full tilt to the tackle, like Mike Vrabel says.
Can we put that to a poll? What is the offseason topic you are most excited to not talk about during football season?
I would venture a guess to say that 90% of Titans fans are going to respond back to you with A.J. Brown. Because he was again making the rounds in the news cycle yesterday.
I've never rolled my eyes so hard.
But regardless of that situation, looking ahead at this NFL season, and the Rams opening under Sean McVay, they are 5-0 in their season openers. The Bills, if you heard the tail end of J. Martin Ramon, or rather Will and Ramon and Will, whatever the iteration of this is at this point. You look at the situation for Buffalo coming into Los Angeles as the favorite. Now, Will made a good point this morning about Buffalo and how the fans travel, and the atmosphere in there will probably skew towards the Bills. But when I look at all the different things that the Rams did in the offseason and how much, for lack of a better term, bleep riding there has been with Buffalo all offseason long, something about this just makes me feel, I hope for nothing more than a competitive game, to be honest with you. I just want to be entertained at the end of the day. But I feel that the way that Buffalo has been talked about this offseason is so much, it kind of skews towards the paperwork side of things. Now, the Rams are a good example of this, because what do the Rams do? They go out, they bring in expensive veterans and famous names, and they try to put together the best possible talent in any given season. They mortgage their future, and they are the best example of, on paper, that team looks great. Buffalo is starting to trend that way. And as I look at the Bills today, and I see what they're up against, not just in the AFC, but in their division, the Jets are going to suck. They got the first 4 games of the year with Joe Flacco. How many polls do we have right now?
We have like 6 or 7.
Okay,
because
I feel like there's got to be a poll about whose season ends more often before it even begins than the New York Jets. Something to that effect.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the Jets season ends literally before it begins.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's already over. They're 0-4.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
0-4 because Joe Flacco, respectfully, Super Bowl MVP, is he elite? Is he not elite? It doesn't matter. He's, at this stage of his career, Joe Flacco is washed, and God help the New York Jets fans.
What a weird division.
Well, but it's far more interesting. Think about this.
Weird is good.
Weird is great. Weird is great. And weird bodes poorly for the Bills, because what's everybody looking at the Bills at? Or as to the Bills as? They're looking at the clear and obvious favorites, not just in the division, but in the conference, which is nonsense, of course. There's no clear and obvious favorite in the conference. Look at the AFC. I beg you. I'm going to make the case for literally 6 or 8 teams in the conference alone that can make the Super Bowl this year. We'll do that coming up next. But think about this season and what we're getting ready to walk into just through the prism of these two teams. It is so difficult, not just to repeat as Super Bowl contenders for the team that won the championship the year before, but to make the playoffs even. There are a frequent amount of Super Bowl champions that simply do not make it back into the postseason. The Rams feel different because of the way that they just clearly don't give a damn about what it's going to look like in 3 to 5 years. They want the rings and they want them now. Respect. But for Buffalo, when's the last time that we have walked into an NFL season where there are zero expectations for a team like the New England Patriots? You got none. Nobody talking about the Patriots. The whole conversation around New England this offseason is, oh my God, they can't run an offense.
I thought last season there were almost no expectations for the Patriots with a rookie Mac Jones.
Maybe so, but even still the conversation was, oh, look, Bill tripped and fell into a first-round quarterback who fits exactly what they want to do.
Fair enough.
Mac Jones is like, it seemed like of all the rookie quarterback and team potential marriages, that Mac Jones and the Patriots made a lot of sense.
And they did have an established offensive play caller, which they do not.
Right, yeah.
Josh McDaniels no longer there.
The walkie-talkie thing with Matt Patricia as the offensive line coach and disgraced former Giants coach Joe Judge out here running the show.
What a tandem.
That's just, the thought of it is tremendous. But again, no expectations for New England. Are you dumb? In what world? They exist to make life miserable for the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. If no one, I don't expect the Patriots to win the Super Bowl this year. Although I might make the case for them.
Oh, stop it.
I might.
Stop it.
I told you 6-18.
Wide receiver 1, Devontae Parker.
I may do it.
I mean, they're going to be a pain in the you-know-what to play. Week in and week out, like they always will be under Bill Belichick. But we had Mike Giardi on here telling us, and he's out there. He was out there at training camp. Mm-hmm. Guys, it's not good with the Patriots offense. Like he came in here, was like, it's really bad.
And listen, the weather conditions when the Patriots played at Buffalo last season, I think it was late in the year, where they beat the Bills throwing only like 3 passes by Mac Jones.
Yes.
Okay, so it may look horrendous and they'll still have a game like that, where they just absolutely dummy somebody who they should have no business beating because they're the Patriots and bleep you.
Yeah, then they got run off the field in Buffalo in the playoffs.
All right, that's fair enough as well. But with all these different things, and as you kind of get yourself excited, and not that you need any extra reason to, because the NFL is what runs the sporting world in North America at this point. When you look at just general, storylines, themes, what are we tracking as we go into another NFL season? And looking at these two teams in particular, I look at this and say, those teams and that game looks like one of the best matchups in week 1. And it may look drastically different from any of our expectations because week 1 is as bizarre as any week in the NFL. Now, there's going to be all kinds of bizarre results that happen across the league heading into this weekend, but there is the case to be made for, I would argue, 8 teams in the AFC, in the Titans conference, that can make a Super Bowl run. We're going to go through who those 8 teams are, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about each of them and why I would make the case for them as Super Bowl contenders coming up next. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
We most certainly are. Welcome back. Kickoff for the NFL's 2022 season takes place tonight. Rams and the Bills in Los Angeles as the primetime kickoff game. 7:20 Central Time on NBC is where you can find it. Now, when you look at the Bills, they have won. No, I'm sorry. Rather, the Rams. They have won their last 5 kickoff weekend games, as we talked about. It's the longest active streak in the conference. Last year marked the 6th time in the last 7 seasons that the eventual Super Bowl winner won the opening game of its championship season. Those kind of stats I hate. Those kind of stats are so useless, but they're great on paper, right? I bet they get Rams fans juiced because they're going to read that and see, repeat. We're going back to back, baby. Nothing can stop us. Sean McVay's going to be drunk again at the post first round press conference with Les Snead because they don't need any first round picks. Bleep those picks, Les Snead.
Run it back. Run it. Wasn't that the chant Sean McVay was doing at the parade?
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I saw a stat like yesterday that since 1998, Tennessee is perfect in the second game of the season after winning week 1. It's like, okay, that's great, but what does that tell me about Tennessee-Pittsburgh?
So I've got 8 teams in the AFC that I think can win the Super Bowl this year. 8. And I think they're a hell of a lot closer to the Buffalo Bills than anybody else is discussing, or at least seems comfortable discussing, in a way that I just see everybody going chalk with Buffalo as far as Super Bowl predictions out of the AFC. And I will tell you that we will not be doing Super Bowl picks on the first day of the NFL season. Not to dismiss anybody who would. I'm just not interested. But before we get to that, we have had several people call in about the idea that they don't want, there are things about the NFL or about the sports calendar that once football arrives, you don't have to talk about it anymore. They become the past and you move on to what's immediately in front of you, which is, at least tonight, Bills and Rams. So let's see what Jason in Murfreesboro has to say about this. Hello, Jason.
Hey, guys. I want to touch base on that and say we don't have to talk about the 2021 season anymore. We don't have to talk about the Tannehill stuff, all the drama and all the, hey, am I going to be a good leader for my rookie quarterback? Like, we get to see what happens this weekend. We don't have to talk about that stuff anymore.
It's a good one. But Jason, if you'll recall, and listen, not everybody listened to every single second of the radio show. I'll forgive you for that. But I told you when rookie minicamp started, no more Tannehill. No more. It's done. This is a new season. Once they start practicing for the 2022 season, I don't care about the Tannehill thing in the Bengals game anymore. Don't care. Now, plenty of people do. And if Tannehill looks bad, you bet your ass we're going to be talking about it on Monday after the Giants game, no matter which way that goes. But for now, you're right. So enjoy your, 72 hours, a little more than that, of peace and quiet and tranquility before somebody comes out there with Tannehill hot takes again. Now, as we look at the contenders, though, truly the contenders in the AFC, I think you have to narrow it down to at least half the conference. Now, half the conference sounds like a lot, but it's really not, given who was in the Super Bowl last year. The Rams, while they were hugely competitive, while they did make the move to get the quarterback that was going to set them over the top, Matt Stafford comes in from Detroit. We know him to be a perennial underachiever prior to last season. He has some moments where he looks like Detroit Stafford in not a good way, namely in the NFC Championship game when he's literally hitting, I think it was Jaquiski Tart, the safety for the Niners, that he hit straight in the chest with an interception that the guy just dropped. And it would have been the Niners and Jimmy G in the Super Bowl again, as opposed to Matt Stafford. So Matt Stafford does well, the Rams do well, and they get to the Super Bowl and have a little luck at the end to help push them over the top. But then there's the Bengals as last year's representative for the AFC. Nobody coming into last season would have looked me dead in the face and said, yeah, the Bengals can play for the Super Bowl this year. Of course you wouldn't have said that. Their offensive line was still trash. It was throughout the course of their entire regular season, postseason, and certainly in the Super Bowl, with it costing them at the final minute as Aaron Donald went out there and won them that game. But Cincinnati was good enough and lucky enough because it almost feels as much luck as it is preparation. But I think luck tends to favor the prepared. You looked at the Bengals and Joe Burrow and his development. And you said, all right, maybe in a couple years, but not yet. They got there too early. They'll be ready to go this year. The Bengals are a team that I think can do that kind of thing again. Their division is better. Lamar Jackson is healthy. The Browns are down bad, and Jake Brisket is no great threat. But looking at what I think that Mitch Trubisky is better than Ben Roethlisberger. I flatly. I have seen too much bad Big Ben football in the last 2 seasons. Even when they got off to that, I think they were 12-0 to start the 2020 season when they came in here as an undefeated team. Were the Titans undefeated at the time too? That can't be right. I don't think that's right.
In which game?
Titans and Steelers here a couple of years ago. Was the Titans undefeated at the time?
I believe so, right? Well, I think it was 2 5-0 teams.
I'd have to go. Yes, it was fairly early. Like they got off to a good start.
The Steelers got off to. Oh, you're talking about the
Steelers
season.
ended up going like 12-0.
No, well, the Steelers were 11-0 before they lost, but it was nobody had them as Super Bowl favorites at any point throughout that season. It was amazing they got to that point, and I think they go one and done in the postseason.
Yeah. Well, he was terrible, and he was fading fast. Like
Roethlisberger.
He had a reconstructed elbow, and he's out there dinking and dunking his way to, kind of dummying Ty Smith on the first drive and getting Ty Smith benched out of that game.
But yeah, I remember that being a big game because it was 2 5-0 teams. And then the Steelers jumped out to a huge lead. Titans were able to kind of crawl back and eventually lost.
So what I did is I looked at each division in the AFC, and I said, okay, realistically, in an expanded postseason, you are not going to have more than 2 teams legitimately come out of any one division. I think if you were going to make the case for 2 wild cards out of one division, the best case would be in the AFC West, where you appear to be most talent stacked. Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers. But still, out of the AFC North, the Ravens and the Bengals, I could make the case for going to the Super Bowl. By nature of just the quarterbacks alone, I don't know how Lamar is going to hold up this year. I hope for his sake he gets a contract done before this season gets going and he doesn't have to kind of play this thing out, because especially the way that he plays, I think that would be an incredibly dangerous proposition, even as it might benefit him wildly financially if he was to have success at the end of 2022. But Ravens and Bengals can make a run to the Super Bowl, indisputably. In the AFC East, the Bills and the Dolphins. I look at the Dolphins as this year's Bengals. I look at everything that they have done under their new administration, with Mike McDaniel as somebody who has worked with significant quarterback limitations before, and I think we all believe and know Tua to be pretty limited as a player, but they have dynamic enough playmakers around them. I think their offensive line is still bad. I watched some Dolphins in the preseason, and you don't learn a lot in the preseason, but you can learn about how good or bad an offensive line is, as we did with the Titans' depth and Dylan Radins. Dolphins still bad. Dolphins still down tremendous up front, and that may damn them. But didn't happen to Cincinnati last year. So I look at Miami as this year's Cincinnati. Bills and Dolphins out of the AFC East. In the AFC West, the Chargers and the Chiefs. Russell Wilson is the 3rd best quarterback in that division. He's a more famous player. He has a Super Bowl ring to his credit. When they were at his best, he was a distributor. He was the thing that you guys rail on Ryan Tannehill for. He was just the facilitator of a Marshawn Lynch running game-driven offense and a nasty defense that allowed them to just completely bum rush Peyton Manning in that Super Bowl win. I don't know how I feel about Brandon Staley, because if you ask me one thing that I think that is going to keep the Chargers from actually doing it, because if you held me to the fire, I would probably pick the Chargers to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm not going to do that because that would be nonsense, and I hate record predictions that way. But Brandon Staley and his coaching philosophy and the fact that, you talked about this offseason interview that he did, Lucas, where he basically said, we're going to live and die with this philosophy that cost us a playoff game or a playoff appearance. Yeah. So Brandon Staley, to me, is still somebody in question, even as I respect the aggressiveness that he approaches it with. I would rather coach be more aggressive than a coward. And then in the AFC South, Colts and Titans. Not only is it a two-team race for the division, but I think you could, at the Titans, even without Landry and with uncertainties on offense, I would still favor them in the division because what their strengths are versus everybody else in the division. I think that Jacksonville and Houston can cause problems for both of these teams and make it interesting at the end. Indianapolis, I think there has been such an overcorrection outside of the state of Tennessee on the Colts. Because did you see this Jamie Erdahl clip from Good Morning Football that went viral where she didn't remember and her producers didn't correct her that Derrick Henry was in fact the back-to-back rushing champion?
Yeah, I didn't take the time to watch the clip. I saw people freaking out about it, and I just purposely scrolled right past it because I didn't want to deal with that.
No, but for our purposes, I think this is applicable. Can you find me that clip quickly? Because I think this is relevant. The Colts, locally, here as we sit here in Nashville, Tennessee, broadcasting the show, and many of you across the mid-state and wherever you listen to the radio show. Because Russell immediately calls me such an Indianapolis homer. Go back to Bloomington, you clown. Buddy, I don't give a damn about the Colts. I could not care less about Indianapolis. In fact, Colts fans I find to be some of the most obnoxious of my friend group, even as I have many of them in my life. The only relationship I have with the Indianapolis Colts is I've been often mistaken for Andrew Luck, which still drives me crazy because he's just so damn ugly. But let me hear this Jamie Erdahl clip, because what I want you to listen for in this clip is how biased the conversation around the Colts has been and what the counter effect has been here locally to get to outright dismiss the Colts in a way that I think is unfair. This is Jamie Erdahl on Good Morning Football.
The last time a running back has won rushing titles in back-to-back years, in the last 40 years, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, and it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. He will lead the league in rushing. He will be your MVP. I know Matt Ryan is with the Colts, but this is the runner that this team will go off of. Last year, the most consecutive games, 8 straight. He went 100-plus rushing yards and scored a rushing touchdown for the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor, I think he was robbed of an MVP last year. He was voted Offensive Player of the Year, and that should tell you something. It's one step at a time for the...
So it goes on at some length, and they're doing a segment on Good Morning Football where they're all wearing the jersey. Each member of the cast, the 4 cast members of Good Morning Football, they're all wearing the jersey of who they think is going to be their MVP this year. And Jamie Erdahl is wearing the Jonathan Taylor jersey.
She acknowledged it on social media, too, said she misread her research.
Well, and that's fine. Like, I make plenty of mistakes on air. God knows that we make plenty of mistakes on air. I'm not hammering Jamie Erdahl for making a mistake. It happens. But when Titans Twitter gets a hold of this, and when Titans fans get a hold of this, it feeds the conspiracy that people just are completely discounting the Titans in ways they're quantifiable when they just outright leave out that Derrick Henry has been the back-to-back rushing champion. It has caused such an overcorrection here among Titans fans on Indianapolis that I feel that people are way over dismissing Indy. They are very close as far as how much better one is versus the other. Again, I say to you, the Titans' strength, even without Harold Landry as that defense, makes me favor them over Matt Ryan at 37 with uncertainty, especially at the tackles. But Gus Bradley is their defensive coordinator. A lot of people in football looked at that and kind of sloughed it off because he's been running an outdated system for quite some time. Vegas last year, where Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator, they found ways to make it work, and they've got the personnel to do so in Indianapolis again. Their secondary it's probably the best secondary that the Colts have had under Frank Reich. Because remember, raise your hand unless you're driving. We'll do a visual bit on an audio medium, as we like to do. Raise your hand if you remembered that Stephon Gilmore was a Colt this year. Lucas and I have both raised our hands. If you're driving, I hope you kept him at 10-2. But they have a lot of talent, and I think Gus Bradley, it's going to work with that system. I like Matt Ryan, to me, is the better quarterback on face value. He's the best quarterback in the AFC South this year. Tannehill may have more success. Tannehill may go further in the playoffs. But if you asked me, removing them from each situation, which player do you think gives their team the best opportunity to win, Tannehill or Ryan? I would say Matt Ryan at this stage. So the outright dismissal of Indianapolis, has made me sound like a Colts defender or Colts somebody who capes up for the Colts in ways that drives Titans fans crazy, and that's fine. But it's just, I think it's nonsense to dismiss them the way that they are being overly dismissed because you're bent out of shape because Jamie Erdahl forgot that Derrick Henry had back-to-back rushing titles. 615-737-1045. A lot of people saying they miss Kay Adams in the YouTube chat. I think Kay got like her own television network on FanDuel. Like, I think Kay is a big part of this FanDuel push where they're taking it on network TV with Pat McAfee and all these other properties that FanDuel's buying up. So that's Kay Adams is still out there doing it. In fact, I think she launched her new show recently. But I do agree that I liked, and respectfully to all four of those individuals that now make up Good Morning Football, I did like the previous cast a little more, but, nobody likes change. So 8 teams. Do you take issue with any of the 8 teams that I think could make a Super Bowl run this year? Bills, Dolphins, Ravens, Bengals, Colts, Titans, Chargers, Chiefs. Am I leaving anybody out?
I mean, I maintain my stance on Brandon Staley, but the Chargers have too much star power. I mean, it's like they're
but the star power
areas.
Can be derailed. Like, this is Mike Vrabel's whole thing, right?
Absolutely.
I don't want to be a coach that relies on talent. The talent helps.
Yeah.
But the coach has the ability to severely inhibit the talent.
Yeah, which is why I almost hate even saying that. But they do, on both sides of the ball. Like, they have players that should not be missing the playoffs every year. Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, Joey Bosa. But that's the only one that I'm hesitant about, but that's just because of my biased opinion on Brandon Staley. I don't really take issue with any
I think
other
many
team.
people would agree with you. I think people came out of that Raiders-Chargers season finale and said, Brandon Staley is a clown. Get him out of here. And in that moment, they would be correct. They would be correct. Now, I understood his justification on the back end, but it's still, they lost the game.
Eric Reed says you're leaving out the Browns.
What? Cleveland?
That is what Eric Reed says in the YouTube chat.
Who? I have done this 17 different times over the course of the offseason. I completely forgot Amari Cooper's a Brown.
He is a Brown.
I have continued to forget that Amari Cooper is a Brown. But Jake Brisket is still the quarterback. You're not doing any winning, any meaningful winning, with Jacoby Brissett starting the bulk of your season.
Well, how many games would Jacoby Brissett, he's starting 11 games for the Browns. How many games would he have to win as the starting quarterback of those 11 for the Browns to have a significant shot at, let's say, home field advantage? Or we'll just say to make the playoffs.
6.
6 out of 11. So he needs to be above 500.
6. You think Jake Brisket's got 6 wins in him? Because I sure as hell don't. That's nonsense. Eric Reed says Deshaun comes back in time. In time for what? To get them to 6 wins? I think that's wildly overrating what Cleveland is this year. Even as I like Kevin Stefanski. I like their offensive roster besides the backup quarterback. You cannot look at the backup quarterback situation, though, especially if you've been paying attention to Titans and Colts in the last couple of years. I mean, Jacoby Brissett went in. I keep calling him Jake Brisket like it's his actual name now. Brissett went in there for Miami several times and was inept is too strong.
Serviceable.
Serviceable is fine, but serviceable does not win, especially not over 500. So we can hash this out if you like, 615-737-1045. But there is an example, speaking of playoffs, a perennial playoff contender in the college football world may have just gotten his butt saved by the media. I'm sure a lot of people are going to groan when they hear me say that. I'll tell you what's going on with Nick Saban coming up next. I got Jimmy Wyatt out here tweeting out supplemental notes. Means the Titans game is on the horizon. Spicy stuff. Give you some good information on that a little later on in the show when Rhett Bryan, executive producer of Titans Radio, joins us to preview the game. Delanie Walker will also be here at 12:20. Make sure you're sticking around for that. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation at any point if you would like. So, a situation has arisen in college football. There is a massive game coming up this week. Now, there's a lot of different wrinkles to what is going to happen between Texas and Alabama. What is the line that Alabama is favored by right now against Texas? Because it has to be double digits.
What do you think it is?
The line for Ohio State and Notre Dame was 17 at its height.
Yes, 17 and a half, something like that.
I would say that would make it a 20-point line between Alabama and Texas.
I've got 20, and that's on the ESPN
Oh, really?
app.
Flatly?
Yeah. On the ESPN app, I believe they use Caesars as their sports book. But, yes, I've got 20 flat. Okay. And that is appropriate. It's going to be a
absolutely.
blowout.
It is going to be, I don't know if it's like Georgia-Oregon bad, but it's going to be bad. Now, there's been a lot of conversation around, Steve Sarkisian going up against Nick Saban, and Sark is. I've seen some comments from Sark ahead of this game talking about it. It matters none to us whether Alabama doesn't matter to us when it comes to our objective of playing in Dallas this year for the Big 12 championship and all these different things. And, he's right. He's right. They could get dummied by Alabama and still go on to have success in the Big 12. With the season ahead. But in the meantime, the opponent is Alabama. And something that came up in Nick Saban's press conference yesterday may save. It won't help Nick Saban win. He doesn't need that. But the thing that was brought up in a Nick Saban press conference yesterday that Lucas has sent me is laugh out loud funny, because it may save him from an unfortunate penalty. Lucas, let me hear this audio, because I have not yet heard it for the first time.
Clarified this offseason that the horns down hand gesture would be a penalty. Have you addressed that with the team going into this game?
What's that?
The horns down hand gesture could be a 15-yard penalty.
I have not addressed it with the team, but I appreciate you letting me know that. So, we got a lot of other things we need to really worry about. But I think that's a good thing for me to go over with the team, so I appreciate that.
What?
Yes!
What?
Win for the media!
Has Nick Saban in his entire adult life ever said to a media member, I appreciate that. Thank you for informing me. Yeah. The horns down is now a 15-yard penalty.
Not in that context. Like, he has done I appreciate what you do for our sport and all that stuff, all that good stuff, but never once. There's no way he has ever said, oh, I appreciate that. I'm going to go over that with the team now.
Yeah. Because Vrabel says some of that stuff, too, when he says, I appreciate the way you guys cover your team. And I'm looking at him like, Mike, you don't appreciate anything about this. You're probably just whispering under your breath as you walk back into the facility, you mother bleepers. You're just calling us professional second guessers and all these things. And he's right. He's right. But Nick Saban, that's a genuine, honest moment from Nick Saban. Being like, oh, I should probably bring that up with the team. Thank you for informing me.
I need to figure out who that reporter was.
Why? So he can win the Pulitzer?
Yes. That reporter, no doubt, that was the best day of his professional career.
See, I didn't know that horns down was a penalty either. That's trash.
Gator chomp is a penalty. It's ridiculous.
What?
Yeah, like if you gator chomp in a game, if a Tennessee player gator chomps after scoring a touchdown against Florida, it's a penalty.
How lame is that? Has that always been the case?
I don't know. I remember it happening to John Kelly when he scored a touchdown in Gainesville and he's gator chomping in front of the Florida fans. Yeah. Immediate flag.
That's like when they tried to emphasize taunting in the NFL and it just became so egregious. It just because, crusty old John Mara, the owner of the New York Giants, was completely disgusted with the way that Odell Beckham Jr. got in the end zone on all fours and lifted his leg like a dog urinating, which is objectively hilarious.
Yeah, more of that.
Well, you say more of that, but I'm certain that there are people in the audience who agree with John Mara. And you are entitled to your opinion. I do not agree with your opinion. As you know, my opinion is I don't care about sportsmanship. It can all burn in hell as far as I'm concerned. Just make me laugh, entertain me. That's all I care about. I also speak on this as somebody who has no children and has no interest in raising any. So I understand if you're a parent and you're hearing somebody say, yeah, bleep sportsmanship. Yeah, you're probably not crazy about that.
If you think that seeing a player get a penalty for pretending to pee like a dog is less fun than just seeing a routine touchdown with no penalty flag, then you're just wrong. You're wrong.
Didn't that happen to Elijah Moore, too?
Yeah, in the Egg Bowl. Like, if you think that Elijah Moore pretending to pee like a dog, literally costing his team the Egg Bowl and potentially costing his head coach his job because they missed the long extra point after the penalty, if you think that is less fun than if Elijah Moore had just scored and they kicked the extra point and the game just keep going, then you're wrong.
So had the reporter not informed Nick Saban that horns down is a penalty, who do you think would have got chewed out by Saban more when somebody inevitably did horns down and got a penalty? You think he'd have chewed out the ref or the player?
Oh.
Because I think he would have gone at the ref.
That's a great
I
question.
think he would have gone at the ref. Would have been Nick Saban already, he's had the rare publicly bad moment this offseason with calling out Jimbo and getting his facts not straight on Jackson State and their NIL situation. If Nick Saban just completely dressed down a referee because he threw a flag for an Alabama player that hypothetically would have thrown a horns down at Texas when they're beating the holy hell out of them by 25 in the second quarter, I think the ref would have got the worst of that if nobody told Saban prior to this.
I'm more intrigued by Vandy Wake Forest than I am Bama Texas.
You think somebody in the Alabama coaching ecosystem gets, like whomever the new Butch Jones intern is, you think that person gets chewed for not telling Nick Saban that horns down is a penalty? Because I feel like that's like, I mean, Vrabel, and I run this through the prism of the coach that I most cover. Vrabel is so drilled down. Now, he's also a part of the competition committee, so he knows the rule book as well, if not better, than the refs, and certainly has exploited certain situations to that effect, to the Titans' benefit. But Vrabel is so diligent about the penalty situation and how things are called and what to coach the players on to avoid penalties in certain situations. I have to imagine somebody on Nick Saban's staff does the same.
Yeah, it's surprising he didn't know.
Russell says, and that is a disgusting act by Randy Moss. What did Randy do? Did Randy moon somebody?
He pretended to moon the crowd.
It wasn't
motioned.
even it wasn't even full cheeks.
Absolutely not. He scored a touchdown. I think it was when he was playing for the Vikings. I don't remember who they were playing, but he just pretended. He did the motion in the back of the end zone.
That's disappointing to hear that Joe, because I love Joe Buck, and I hate that Joe Buck is clearly repressed in his opinions of celebration of sport. Anyway. As we get ready for the Tennessee Titans and the New York Giants this weekend at Nissan Stadium, of course, the Lee Company countdown to kickoff with Blaine Bishop, Mickey Ryan, and myself will get you started at noon, 3.5 hours before kick. I believe, Lucas, correct me if I'm mistaken on this. Does Titans Radio start a little bit early?
A little bit earlier.
Okay. So we will have you from noon to 2 then, and I assume that Titans Radio will take over after that with Titans Countdown leading up until kickoff. There is another college football coach who has been the standard for excellence alongside Nick Saban. Dabo Swinney just got paid. And there is a question that I need to ask you, Lucas, and everybody within the sound of my voice about how good a coach do you actually think Dabo Swinney is? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
It is 11:01. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans' first injury report of the season came out on Wednesday with defensive backs Lonnie Johnson Jr. and Elijah Molden not practicing with groin injuries. Linebacker Chance Campbell and offensive lineman Jamarco Jones were limited participants. Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau, and wide receiver Sterling Shepard were limited for the Giants. It's the Titans in New York, Giants in Nissan Stadium, a 3:25 kickoff on Sunday. The NFL season kicks off tonight, Thursday Night Football, as the Buffalo Bills travel to the defending Super Bowl champion LA Rams, a 7:25 kickoff at SoFi Stadium. College football, Clemson has reportedly approved a new contract for head coach Dabo Swinney, 10 years, $115 million, making him the second highest paid coach in college football behind Nick Saban. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 here on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome in. Welcome back on this NFL kickoff Thursday. Bills and Rams tonight. Going to be an enjoyable one. We'll talk some Titans here in just a little while. Delanie Walker will be here. Get into the game, what he's seen, the kind of growth specifically from Derrick Henry and just as a franchise, since Delanie was one of the foundational pieces to kind of start to get this thing right. That's at 12:20 today. Your phone calls always welcome. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Let's talk about what happened today in the world of college football, because we spent a little time, joking about the Nick Saban horns down potential penalty situation that it seems like the media may have bailed him out of, which is funny. Should it have happened? Which, likely not.
Also bailed him out of one penalty and probably what will be like a 42-10 tie.
You're the one taking a victory lap, bud. I don't know.
No, it is
You literally threw your hands up in the air.
It is a victory.
Sent us a message last night, all caps, a victory for the media.
It is absolutely a victory, but it won't make a difference.
Oh, this is why people hate us, just generally as an industry. You understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, from one national championship winning coach to another, Dabo got paid today. Dabo got a new 10-year, $115 million extension, which now makes him a part of the venerable $10 million club. He joins now Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Brian Kelly, and ironically enough, Mel Tucker. Do you know Mel Tucker was making $10 million a year?
Yes. Got a huge contract a year ago.
Yikes. I mean, they have been better under Mel, but that seems... Anyway, this is why when athletic directors were crying poor during the COVID season with potential shutdowns and stuff like that, it's just nonsense. Get out of here. And then all of a sudden, Jeremy Pruitt is out and buyouts are flying everywhere and Gus Malzahn and just nonsense. So, Dabo was making 8.3. The money doesn't matter. The money is not what I care about here. The money is only relevant because of the way that the contract is structured. Did you see this note? I didn't notice it until Barrett Sallee pointed it out. His buyout goes up if he leaves specifically for Alabama. That's a real... I don't know that I've seen that before. It may have existed and just not been reported or been as high profile as national champion at Clemson going to national champion Alabama. Should anything happen to Nick Saban or should he decide to leave the sport, succession, it's kind of like the show in this case, except Saban is far more coherent and competent than Logan Roy in the show Succession, for those of you who watch HBO. Now, you know that Dabo played at Alabama. He's from where? Pelham?
Pelham, Alabama. Yeah.
Pelham, Alabama. So the ties have obviously been there, and it's long been discussed that it just makes the most sense for Dabo to walk into that job. He's had a lot of success. He recruits at a high level. He understands how to put a coaching staff together, and he knows the program inside and out. But to see the note in here that the buyout would go up, specifically if he went to Alabama, would Alabama fans really want Dabo? Because his his last couple of years, now they've been the standard right next to Alabama. Like Alabama is thought of as the standard in college football, rightfully so. But in the college football playoff era, it's Saban and Dabo neck and neck. It's Clemson and Bama neck and neck because they have been winning at basically the same rate. Since his coaching staff has started to fray, Tony Elliott, the former offensive coordinator, is now at Virginia. You know that Brent Venables is coaching the Oklahoma Sooners. And that what Clemson looked like on, Monday night against Georgia Tech, on offense specifically, was egregious. Now, Dabo was asked after the game what he felt about the offense, and the final score ended up being indicative of a blowout in ways that the game itself was not. But this was Dabo after the game.
We weren't trying to run the score, but we just needed to let him play so we could get, real meaningful snaps there. Our backups continued to make some good plays. And so just a great team effort, and again, played 4 quarters.
So short and sweet, but he's talking about, we just needed to get DJ some playing time.
No, he's talking about Cade Klubnik.
Oh, he's talking about Cade Klubnik there.
That's right. They called a timeout with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter to get the ball back and give Cade Klubnik a series where he went 4 for 6, 50 yards and a touchdown.
Okay, forgive me. I did not have the context of the question. But Cade Klubnik looks substantially better as an option for Clemson at quarterback. They have not been able to figure out how to make DJ competent. Now, their offensive line doesn't look very good. And certainly the offensive system did not lend itself to making DJ successful. He had missed opportunities that, those are throws that a high-level D1 college football playoff contending quarterback should make. And we all think that Clemson is that. I mean, you have been staunchly advocating for Clemson as the favorite in the ACC, where every time I look around at the different quarterbacks in the ACC, I'm saying, DJ, I like among the least of these because of his inaccuracies, and he just clearly has trouble identifying things on the field.
That doesn't mean DJ's starting by the end of the season for Clemson.
No, it doesn't. And that can, a down year for them is like Nick Saban saying last year was a rebuild when he's playing in the national championship game. They won 10 games, and it was a down year for Clemson. They can right the ship quite easily, and they rolled Georgia Tech by the final margin of victory. But Georgia Tech was in that game very much so until basically the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and Clemson has time to figure this out. I mean, week 5 at Wake Forest. There's your first big test if you're Clemson. You're playing Furman, you're playing Louisiana Tech before you have to go to Wake Forest, who at this point we know or we believe Sam Hartman will be playing, especially if he's playing this weekend.
So let's make it less about Clemson and let's refocus on Dabo. Dabo has sounded, and he'll continue to be successful this year, I'm quite certain. But he has sounded more dated in the NIL era than any other college football coach of that scale. Nick Saban has had moments where, you use it because everybody hates Nick Saban in Alabama, unless you're an Alabama fan, because of course you would. They win everything, and their games are over by the second quarter because you're not as good as they are. So Nick Saban has had some moments where people have tried to blow it up bigger than it actually is. When in reality, it's just Nick Saban being like, yeah, we'll play this way if you want us to play this way, but I'm warning you, it's going to change things. That can sound dated in real time, but also be kind of like just like a warning on a pack of cigarettes or something like that. Like, use with caution because it may give you college football cancer. So looking at Dabo, I feel that Dabo, as a national championship winning coach, is closer to Ed Orgeron than Nick Saban. What I mean by that is that Dabo clearly has the thing that gets players engaged. He clearly has the thing that keeps players committed, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, not just with the NFL draft and the amount of talent that they're running through there, but now in the transfer portal era. So that cannot be underrated. But Ed Orgeron kind of had that too. What I see from Dabo is with a less than proven coaching staff, struggles. They'll get it ironed out, as Lucas said. They have plenty of time to do so. They have a superior quarterback as their backup right now, it would seem, and they can make that change at any point. But Dabo, for me, has been more figurehead than the thing that helps them win the games. It keeps the talent there. It gets the talent in there in the first place. But if you're asking me on a scale of coaches that have won rings, who I think Dabo is closer to, I'm definitely going with Ed Orgeron over Nick Saban. Does that comparison make sense?
Not really. And I see what you're saying, but Ed Orgeron is not anywhere close. He's not a program builder whatsoever. That is a huge difference. Dabo Swinney is inarguably a program builder with what he's done at Clemson. Ed Orgeron built a great team.
I'm not saying that they're the same. I'm saying that Dabo is closer to Ed than he is to Nick. Now, Nick has built not a program, the definitive program in college football. LSU has been a definitive program in college football, no matter if they cycle through the Grass Eater or the Swamp Monster or whomever else you want to, except maybe Brian Kelly. We'll see what happens there. But, like, LSU's always in it. Tennessee fans have been talking about the game at Death Valley as if that was a bigger threat to them than Florida coming to Knoxville this year, because it's LSU. They're held in that regard. LSU is the program. Is Dabo Clemson's program? Because it took them a while, and he got them. You remember how angry he used to get at press conferences when people would ask him openly about Clemsoning, the way that they would kind of fumble away these games, and it seems like a long time ago. And he has done the thing that has rectified that. They are the contender. But LSU was that with or without Ed Orgeron. And I look at the two of them and saying, yeah, there's a middle ground there. The answer is, in reality, somewhere in between, obviously, Ed O and Saban. But I think the more that I pay attention to his tendencies and the way that he handles things and the way that he kind of steps in it more often than not, he strikes me less as Saban's peer than ever he has before, even as he's being paid as if he was Saban's peer. And even as he wins as if he was Saban's peer.
Saban also doesn't have any peers. He just doesn't.
That's true.
There's not one coach you can name that is a peer to Nick Saban. Not even Kirby Smart. No, not yet. Mason in the YouTube chat says, hard to compare Dabo and Saban because the talent Dabo has had at quarterback. Has Nick Saban ever had someone as talented as Watson and Lawrence? Bryce Young now, but who else? Ignoring
Tua
and
way.
Jalen Hurts. But
not until recently. Like, Nick Saban just decided, okay, let's recruit quarterbacks.
But the point is, I find that so funny when people try to discredit a college head coach. Like, well, yeah, of course he wins. He has all that talent. Like, yeah.
He had to get it
there.
Yeah,
he had to get it there. That's the whole point. It's most of your job. Kirby Smart talks about it all the time. Yeah, we win because we have better players.
Yeah.
So I think it's so funny.
Wasn't that basically like what he said about Oregon?
We have better players. I mean, it's so funny when people use that. He's not that good of a coach. He just has the best players.
No, Shane Beamer, when he lost to Georgia last year, he's like, yeah, they got 5 stars all over the place. They're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they just ate us. Yeah, my quarterback literally got stuck in the Georgia defense in Jordan Davis's armpit.
He got lost in his gut somewhere. Yeah, he's just in his stomach somewhere. But most coaches are not scheming up wins for championships. They just have better players. Stop using that as a way to, for some reason, discredit a college football head coach. Well, it's so funny to me.
I'm reminded of this because I had on, just in the absence of college football, the rare absence of college football on like Sunday during the day before the LSU-FSU game, they had on this special from 2019 that ESPN did called the College Football 150, like 150 years of college football.
Yeah, I love watching those.
So I never watched that kind of stuff. And it was on and I was working, so I started to pay attention to it. And then it really caught my attention once we got to the Woody Hayes section.
Oh, I was watching that yesterday, yeah.
Okay, and then who's the testimonial talking about Woody Hayes? Can you tell me that?
Oh, I mean, Kirk Herbstreit was up there. I know Charles Davis is talking about it. Was Dabo up there?
No.
Who are you talking about?
Uncle Herb.
Oh.
Urban Meyer was one of the people that they interviewed for this College Football 150. And Urban Meyer is, I think, now that he has been exposed as fraud and fraudulent leader of men that he has been posing as and selling books on and leading this career as for many, many years, and he'll continue to do it on Fox, I'm certain. There's going to be a segment where somebody asks Urban Meyer about what the good measure of leadership on a football team is, and he'll give you his 3 keys or something like that. But now that we know he's gotten to the pros and he looked like a fool and more catastrophic than any NFL coach I can remember, really and truly. When they were talking to Urban about Woody Hayes, it just kind of crystallized for me like Urban is the example of just better players. Like, just better players. Now, Ryan Day is a good coordinator. Hell, Mike Vrabel tried to hire him before they promoted Arthur Smith. For those of you who remember that cycle after Matt LaFleur went to be the coach of the Packers. But Urban, never has there been a better poster child for it's just, you don't have to be smarter that much smarter than people to be a college football head coach. You just have to recruit better. Let's talk some Titans. We talked to Greg Cosell, or I talked to Greg Cosell yesterday on the latest episode of The Install. It's a full 30-minute preview of Giants and Titans, but there's one piece that I need you to hear on the radio show about how New York is going to try to attack Tennessee's offense on Sunday. You're going to hear that coming up next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Titans and Giants, it's happening this Sunday at Nissan Stadium. Bills and Rams will play tonight. You got to wait a couple days for many of your favorite teams, as we broadcast here in Middle Tennessee, to take the field, or, whether you're a Cowboys fan, Steelers fan, there's all manner of NFL. Especially, have you noticed how, I wonder if you have noticed any difference in, the dynamics of Nashville sports fans, given the sheer amount of transplants that we have in the city that come in with their own sports allegiances? Because that's not necessarily something I've picked up on. Now, I think the people who care about sports in Nashville are going to be Nashville sports fans, because mostly, entertainment is our primary function here. But it's never really popped to me. I know there's a lot of Steelers, before the Titans were here, there's a generation of NFL fans that have their own allegiances. I think there's one Steelers truck that I see all over town. It's got 17 different Super Bowl stickers on the back of it. It's like NASCAR. It's like Ricky Bobby when they put the from Talladega Nights, when they put the Wonder Bread sponsorship over the driver's, what do I call it, windshield?
Yes.
Windshield. Sorry, that was hard. Anyway, I got distracted. Titans and Giants. So how is New York going to try and attack Tennessee on Sunday? There's a lot of different ways to explore this, because Cosell and I, Greg Cosell of NFL Films, the podcast, it's called The Install. It's available to you every Wednesday. And the new one is in your feed as of 6 p.m. yesterday evening. So Greg and I were talking about this before we started the podcast, and he goes, "How have you been talking about this game on air?" And Greg, of course, is hugely analytical. You think I'm bad about score predictions and record predictions? The disgust in Greg's voice anytime that kind of stuff is brought up is palpable. It honestly makes me feel bad, and I'm somebody who hates that stuff too. So when Greg asked me how I've been talking about the game, I've been honestly, Greg, I know so little about either of these teams, just what they're going to look like when they get out there, that I have tried to take so many different angles on this to provide actual insight, but the unknown has kind of caught my attention. I'm going to let you hear from Greg Cosell here in just a minute, but Derrick Henry is done at the podium. So let's hear from offensive coordinator Todd Downing when he gets up to the podium, because I know that practice is getting ready to take place at St. Thomas Sports Park, and that the coordinators, not Mike Vrabel, are speaking today. I'd be curious to hear from Todd Downing. I know many of you would be, given that much of your offseason criticisms have been directed his way. But for Todd, let's see what he has to say.
As you start to get into this season with him?
Yeah, I think it's similar to how we've approached it in the past. Get him going and see where we're at in the game and what the flow of the game is. A lot feeds into that from a standpoint of how long drives are, right, or how many snaps we've had on offense early. So I think there are a lot of factors in play there, and I've liked what I've seen out here on the practice field, so excited to see what he's got.
With that flow of the game, the DC on the other side, he said he likes to dictate what offenses do. But for you as a play caller, how much do you want to dictate how that flow of the game goes?
Yeah, I think as a play caller, it's always important to try to find a rhythm and a flow of the game, and to be able to pair things between things that maybe you've seen on tape or scouted, versus, just your bread and butter stuff. And so, always looking for ways to make sure that I'm helping our guys get into a rhythm and find a groove.
With a coordinator like that, so aggressive, that blitzes so much, how much more important does cadence come into play this week as opposed to maybe others?
Yeah, I think we've played similar schemes on defense, both at home and on the road. But being at home, the communication, is absolutely critical, and we've got to take advantage of that opportunity to be able to use not only cadence, but, discussing protections and things like that.
How important was your success in the red zone last year? I mean, you guys probably didn't score as often as you wanted, but you were able to score when you got it down there, and maybe looking forward to, is that a key as well?
Yeah, red zone's something that we've certainly spent a lot of time on around here, at least the years that I've been here.
And that's been a staple of, how we're going to win games, right? Taking advantage of your opportunities to put up 7s as opposed to 3s. And so that's going to be a key or an area of focus any single week. But, that's certainly something that we take a lot of pride in.
You get a trade line as far as improvement goes, and what do you think his readiness level is heading into the year?
I think he's on a steady trajectory in a good way. I think he's been getting more and more reps and opportunities in practice that, have shown some good things. So we'll see where he's at and how this thing progresses.
You get a quarterback like Ryan, who's obviously been in the league a long time. What's the balance like for you in terms of improvement over the course from season to season and yet allowing him to follow a path that he's been following for a long time himself?
Man, it's been awesome, this process with Ryan this year, and just from the off season and kind of stripping things down from a teaching standpoint and getting receivers on the same page of what he's looking for and where he expects them to be, watching his command, his leadership. And then, us being able to kind of tie together now that we're into some game planning phases of things he likes, he's comfortable with, and maybe some new wrinkles that, we're trying to add in there. And there's definitely a balance there between trying to push the envelope too much in terms of improvement and necessarily getting back to, some foundational aspects of things. But I'm excited about where we're at, and I'm appreciative of Ryan's hard work and how he's taken command through this last couple months.
He's talked about a burning fire, the way last season ended. Have you seen that in him?
I think Ryan's a pretty high competitive spirit guy to begin with. Is there extra motivation? Does he have a burning fire? That's a question for him. I think if you spend too much time looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to hit something that you're driving right into. So, I'm focused on the future and what we're going to do, hopefully starting Sunday and get this thing off to the right start.
Get some early impressions on Josh Gordon yet, and how's he coming along in terms of learning things?
Yeah, seems like a good guy. I haven't seen him out there a lot in terms of our snaps just yet, but he's progressing each day, getting used to the way we do things around here. And the guy's just getting our schedule and practice routine down right now. So we're in the early stages of that, but glad to have him around.
Do you think somebody like Josh, who just kind of hit his body, his frame is one of his best assets, is that something that maybe he's able to teach a guy like Traylon, who has some of those similar physical traits, a little bit more than somebody else in the room, when he's able to see a veteran that has the same stature and skill set as him?
Traylon's position coach has a pretty big stature and did some things as a big wide receiver in this game. But yeah, there's always place for veteran wisdom and I'm sure discussing things as they get more time to sit around with one another. But yeah, I'm just as impressed watching Rob Moore walk around here as I am anybody else.
That's Todd Downing, the Titans offensive coordinator, meeting with the media right now. Shane Bowen's going to speak later, but for our purposes, the offense is the thing that is the unknown. We know that Harold Landry is not going to be out there, but we know largely what the Titans defense is going to do. We know the concepts. We know the personnel. We have gotten to know more about the Titans' new look personnel. How much different it looks from year over year is the question. I wonder, because that last voice was Sam Phelan. He's one of my he's a new colleague of mine at A to Z Sports. You think he knows Rob Moore played in the NFL? I'm willing to bet not.
Probably not. Played for Coach Mack.
Yeah, that's Rob Moore was a badass man. he was Teron Davenport raves about watching Rob Moore as a kid. And TD played, I can't remember if it was D2 or D3 wide receiver in college.
Yeah, Moore had a long career from 1990 to 2002.
He was like a supplemental pick, too. Like, he wasn't like a draft pick. I think the rules were different back then when he came into the league. But anyway, we don't have to get bogged down in Rob Moore. So the unknowns on offense. How is a defensive coordinator, and in fact, I think Teron asked Todd Downing this question, how is a defensive coordinator like Wink Martindale, formerly of the Ravens, been on the Ravens coaching staff for the last 10 years, now the Giants DC, how is he going to go at the Titans? Well, this is what Greg Cosell's analysis of it was, having studied Wink Martindale's tendencies.
Obviously, I think they would both be starters, so now you're going into your depth, so it's not quite as good. But I think probably the larger discussion is the new coordinator. Obviously, they have a new head coach as well, but the new coordinator is Wink Martindale. Mm-hmm. And he came from Baltimore, and he's been in this league for a long time. And he is a very difficult coordinator to prepare for and to play against because of the multiplicity of looks that he gives you, particularly on third down. And I think that that's something that the Titans need to be prepared for. It's something their offensive line clearly needs to be prepared for. Certainly, Brian Tannehill does as well. In a sense, everybody does, because if you're getting pressure, even receivers need to understand, do I need to shorten my route? What do I need to do if I get pressure? One of the things that Wink Martindale is really, really good at is showing pressure from one side of a formation, which often dictates a protection call to that side, which means more bodies go to that side, but then actually bringing the pressure from the other side where there's fewer bodies and the protection can't pick it up.
Right.
So that's one thing Wink Martindale is really, really good at. He uses all defenders essentially as potential rushers. So theoretically, they have 11 pass rushers.
Now, that is effective to an extent, unless you have a bad secondary. Go look at the Ravens' numbers in the secondary last year against the higher level quarterbacks and even some of the average quarterbacks. Because they blitz so frequently that way and because they use all of their personnel as, in effect, as Greg said, rushers at any given point, it can really, really leave their corners out to dry. And then all of a sudden you're expecting, the safeties to make plays that go above and beyond. And that's not something that New York is in a terribly good position to be able to do anyway. Adoree Jackson is their best corner, I think. And Adoree, how would you define Adoree's career here? Because I've struggled. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't all that great. Like, he had games where you're like, okay, like this is clearly and obviously a first-round pick, but it never, at least from my standpoint, because I think the year he was drafted, that was the first year I covered the team, I just never really saw that kind of come to fruition in a way that a top 20 pick probably should.
I kind of look at it in a similar light to Corey Davis. Is that fair?
No, Corey Davis is so much worse. Because Corey Davis, fifth overall.
Just because he's a top 5 pick?
It's that has to be Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, or Corey Davis, and you can't. Yeah, no, it's much, much worse. Because like the talent, once you get past like really the top 10 players in the NFL draft, like it really is a lot closer than I think people want to make it. Like the difference between a second round pick and a fifth round pick is not that monumental, even though, you may think it is just by nature of how many different players there are. You know what I'm saying? But like if you're top 10 in the NFL, you got to be a pro, you got a multi-time Pro Bowler, you got to be potentially an all-pro. You've got to have a 10-year career with the franchise that drafted you because you're that guy. Or what's the line? You're not that guy. You're not that guy, pal, or something like that. I don't know. I ruined it.
Who do you think you are? I am.
No, not that Pete Weber.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
Not that Pete Weber. Back to the shadows. Good pull by you. Adoree Jackson has not been all that great. Now, he has looked okay at times, but there are moments for him where I really struggle with how proficient he is in certain circumstances. And again, his last season here was marred by injury, and I think there was some disgruntled feelings between the Titans and Adoree Jackson about how soon they thought he was ready to play versus how soon he thought he was ready to play. Because I think the difference was like Pittsburgh in week 6 versus Green Bay at the end of the year when he finally got on the field. That caused some tension between the two sides. But as you look at the Giants in the secondary, they cannot hold up that well if Wink Martindale is going to bring this kind of aggressive pressure. Now they're going to have a big old fat red circle around Nick Petit-Frere when they're dialing up their pressure packages on the whiteboard this week in New York, because he is going to be in a position where he's going to have some bad snaps. Like, expect Nick Petit-Frere to look bad in this game. He's a rookie. It's his first start, and this is a very, very aggressive defense that he's playing. And so I asked Tehran to ask Mike Vrabel yesterday, because obviously I couldn't attend the press conference in person. We were doing the radio show. I wanted to know about the protection plan that they're kind of putting in place, given what they have starting at right tackle, and this was the Titans head coach.
It's a long protection meeting. You know, it's you can't basically cover everything. You're not sure which package you're going to get each and every week. A lot of credit to the players that they have. The scheme is very good, but being able to bring guys and essentially run the same pressure, but just from different guys doing it and different guys dropping into those zones or the man that they have. So they've done a great job of it, and it's certainly going to be something that we'll have to be prepared for on Sunday.
And then having a rookie right tackle, how do you balance, okay, I need to help him out, I don't need to help him out? How do you balance that equation?
Well, we'll see how the game goes, and there'll be protections where we'll slide to the right, there'll be protections where we slide to the left, and we'll see. We'll have to see how the game's going.
That's Mike Vrabel talking about what their protection meetings have looked like this week getting ready for the Giants. That's the kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that Nick Petit-Frere is going to be a bad right tackle, but I don't expect him to look good on Sunday. And it's almost, if he costs them the game, if he gives up the game-winning sack and there's a forced fumble or something like that, obviously people are going to lose their minds, and you can pinpoint that. That's just a hypothetical, of course. But my expectation for Nick Petit-Frere is so low in this first game just because of what he's up against. There will be some good plays, but largely it's going to look rough for him. And that doesn't mean that he's not the best option that you have at right tackle. It just means that he's going to be seeing a lot for the first time in his first real start in the NFL. 615-737-1045. What are you looking for between the Titans and the Giants? Where do you think the Titans match up best against New York? Where do you think they match up the worst? We're going to talk about this obviously tomorrow with Coach Mack, but I'm curious to know how Titans fans are feeling about this. You know who else I'm curious about? Just perpetually. Just generally. He's my QB1 forever and always. Well, actually, no, that's not true. That's Phillip Rivers, just because the faces. Jameis Winston. Now, when I say Jameis Winston, is he attempting to teach anatomy or biology? What is Jameis Winston attempting to explain in the clip that we're going to play for people coming up next?
Football.
Okay, excellent. We'll do that. You seen this Heisman House screenshot going around?
Yes.
So the Heisman House commercials, no free ads. I mean, Nissan, we do a free Nissan ad every time we say Nissan Stadium, I guess. But,
no free ads.
But the Nissan Heisman House commercials, right? They're all over the place, especially this time of year around college football. You got RG3, you got the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier, Marcus Mariota, although he was not in this year's. Marcus fading into the background in the Heisman House commercials. Unfortunate.
Did you see Marcus talking to Atlanta media about how someone asked him, do you think Oregon can cover against Georgia?
Oh, no, but did you see Art the other day?
Yes. But someone asked Marcus on Atlanta radio, hey, Marcus, can Oregon cover? And he said, and I thought that was the most disrespectful question I've ever heard.
What?
That's what Marcus said. He said he thought it was an incredibly disrespectful question for someone to ask him if Oregon could cover against Georgia.
I like Marcus personally, and I understand that he is wired differently than most human beings, but like Marcus, come on. Man.
They didn't cover.
They didn't. What Georgia did to them was disrespectful, not the question, can Oregon cover? Oh, goodness. I'm honestly shocked to hear that Marcus was doing radio interviews in Atlanta as the starting quarterback. It's pretty interesting to me. But these Heisman House commercials, Derrick Henry is obviously heavily featured because he's a star and, of course, won the Heisman at Alabama. And the thing that I have seen floating around the internet today, these commercials have been out for almost a week now, it would seem, since college football really started up in earnest. But recently, I guess somebody did the time to go like Zapruder film the Heisman House commercials, because there's a scene where Tim Tebow is weighing Derrick Henry, and the weight on the scale says 260 pounds. So when we talk about him having his hair down, making him look bigger, no, he's just huge right now and still moving at a rate of speed that nobody that size, that was unthinkable before when Derrick was like 245 coming out of college, 260 pounds running through your face mask 25 to 30 times a game. He can't, I mean, that can't be. Those have to be filmed before training camp. He cannot possibly be 260 pounds right now.
I don't know. Yeah,
Buddy.
There's no way they were filmed during training camp. Obviously, he's here every day.
You're right. Yeah, no, they do these things in the offseason. I think he has to fly to Dallas for them specifically, and that's why, I mean, I think there is a connection to Dallas. He works out in Dallas in the offseason. I'm not sure if it's family related or whatever the case may be, but Derrick, just one, who is taking the time to go and make sure that they can figure out exactly how much Derrick weighs through a Nissan Heisman House commercial from this very, very, very small scene in the larger thing. But still, the revelation of Derrick at 260 is wild. Tyler Dial in the YouTube chat. You can interact with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A 260-pound man running over 20 miles an hour would be like getting hit by a car. Ask Darius Leonard.
Yeah. Shaq Leonard. We need someone to explain this to us, how this is possible for the human body to look and be built like that.
Well, this is such a weird thing. Derrick has to hate this because he's already so like, every time he like even slightly moves his shoulders to music at practice, like there's 70,000 videos. So it's like he has to, for a guy like with the personality of Derrick, like this kind of hyper scrutiny has to drive him nuts, especially when you're talking about his physical appearance.
We need to call in an expert on this.
Who's the expert but Derrick?
I think I know of someone.
Who?
I need to work my ankles. And you got certain things that we're all like, our body is so symmetrical, right? You got your wrists, and then what are your wrists on the bottom half? Your ankles, you got your shoulders up top. What are your shoulders? Your hips, you know what I'm saying? You got your elbows. What are your elbows? Your knees, right? Like, so it's symmetrical, and you just got to work different parts.
That explains it. Thanks, Jameis.
That's the Jameis Winston anatomy clip you've been wanting to play.
You got your elbows, which are, and he looks at the media guy.
No, don't get in trouble and do the accent. Don't.
Your knees.
Put yourself in a good position here, bud. Okay. This is like when people try to imitate Shannon Sharp, but they're not Shannon Sharp. It can be problematic. Like, don't get nuts.
But he's looks like he's like a teacher up there, like the way he's demonstrating.
He's
and then
talking with his hands. He's very emotive.
And he puts his hand out to let the media guy answer, like, your knees, that's right.
Like
yeah,
what, call and response?
Yeah,
like he's a teacher. Like
so your elbows are, and he looks at the guy goes, your knees. Yeah, your knees. Good job.
Jaquan Fitzpatrick says, then you do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around. I need badly. You know how like you can be like a doctor of letters, like not an actual doctor, but you can get a PhD from certain colleges. Like it's always, I always listen to Tony Kornheiser's podcast. Again, no free ads, but Kornheiser makes me laugh. And he's a doctor of humane letters. Like Tony Kornheiser PhD is a real thing. I need desperately, not just Jameis Winston QB1, but Jameis Winston PhD. I'm dying for it.
We need more Jameis Winston on the Heisman House commercials. I feel like he's never a part of those.
He would be. You think that's because there's, Jameis has at times been problematic? You think that's just kind of something Nissan wants to steer clear of?
That might be
because he had that whole situation with the situation in the lift ride. Where there was maybe some unwelcome advances. I can't remember all the details. I don't want to speculate erroneously on what Jameis. And obviously everybody makes the crab legs jokes, but I don't know what, because I think my first reaction is Jameis would be a star in these things. Anyway, 615-737-1045. Seth calling us from the great state of Kentucky. Hello, Seth.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing swell.
Yeah, I was just going to see what you guys are thinking about Wan'Dale Robinson. Being from Kentucky, we watched him light it up. He's a great route runner. He's fast, and Titans have had a history of struggling to cover those kind of guys. And a lot of attention is on Saquon Barkley and what the Giants are going to do on defense. But I was just going to see what you guys think about Wan'Dale Robinson.
No, it's a good question. I'm glad you asked, Seth. And so the circumstance for tomorrow, because Coach Mack is going to be on the radio show. I can only be here there's a situation. I have a funeral that I need to go to, so I'm only going to be here for the first hour. So Lucas and Coach Mack will be talking about, Wan'Dale Robinson and his potential uses in the Giants offense. But this was something Cosell and I went through yesterday. And the different ways that you can deploy Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney and Matt Breida, who's on their roster this year, and Saquon Barkley with a mobile quarterback like Daniel Jones. And he's not like mobile quarterback in the sense of, like, Josh Allen is a mobile quarterback. Kyler Murray is a mobile quarterback. Daniel Jones is a pocket quarterback that can run, to his credit. He's clearly an athlete. Depending on his coordination, it's a different discussion. But the variety of different uses, it's not necessarily about the player, but how this is the kind of curveball stuff that you're looking for to kind of catch a defense on its heels in week one. Brian Daboll is a well thought out offensive mind. Mike Kafka, who comes from the Chiefs, is calling the plays. I expect that it will be less about like covering a wide receiver straight up in the conventional way than it will be about, okay, where all over the formation are they lining up Wan'Dale and Kadarius Toney and all these different kind of, Kenny Golladay almost doesn't factor into this in a weird way. 615-737-1045. Buffalo calling us from Gallatin today. Hello, Buffalo.
No, I'm in Franklin, Kentucky. I've been waiting so long.
That's pretty
Traveling
good,
man.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Hey, as a Green Bay Packer fan, moved here from Wisconsin in '85. There's lots of Tennessee folks that are fans of other NFL teams like myself, and we watched Bud Adams come here from Houston, and we watched how much Houston wanted to get rid of Bud Adams, and the whole Pac-Man Jones and the whole, it used to the Titans used to get in the news for being in trouble.
Okay.
Fast forward for today, and you go back a couple of years, and you remember when the Titans put the Patriots out of the playoffs. It was supposed to be, Brady's last game. The Titans probably almost doubled their fan base just because of that game and things like that and good things going on in the community, which they weren't when they got here. But, hey, shout out to King Hani Mukhtar Saturday.
Absolutely.
Going for another win, going for another big W.
He's an absolute star. Thank you for the call, Buffalo. That's the first time I felt bad about callers waiting on hold, is Buffalo has been on hold so long that he's literally in a different state. than when he first called us. Anyway, we'll get more of your calls. Final hour coming up. Rhett Bryan is going to be in studio, so if you have more Titans questions, we'll go through it with Rhett B. and Delanie Walker at 12:20. Stay right there. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans' first injury report of the season came out on Wednesday with defensive backs Lonnie Johnson Jr. and Elijah Molden not practicing with groin injuries. Linebacker Chance Campbell and offensive lineman Jamarco Jones were limited participants. Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau, and wide receiver Sterling Shepard were limited for the Giants. Titans and Giants kicking off at 3:25 Sunday at Nissan Stadium. The NFL season kicks off tonight, Thursday Night Football, as the Buffalo Bills travel to the Los Angeles Rams, who, by the way, just locked in Les Snead and head coach Sean McVay through 2026. That kickoff, 7:25 at SoFi Stadium. College football, Clemson has reportedly approved a new contract for head coach Dabo Swinney, 10 years, $115 million. That makes him the second highest paid coach in all of college football behind Nick Saban. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Third down on a Thursday. Welcome in. Final hour of the show. Buck Rising here with you. Lucas Panziga and Jackson are back there making it happen. And a giggling Rhett Bryan, executive producer of Titans Radio, is in the house.
It's because it's game week, Buck.
You're just
it's
giddy?
Here. Yes.
No, that's not where the giggles were coming from.
We are swimming in the chaos of week one.
I want to drown in it. Just
I do.
Take me out to the deep end, Rhett.
Inject it, please. Let's go. Yeah, I just got back from St. Thomas Sports Park and did some interviews for some stuff we're doing on Sunday. Had a nice conversation with Ryan Stonehouse. I think that is an interesting story in this because, you know, we've known and had Brett Kern here for so long. And the one thing that we know about Brett Kern is, I mean, the guy would have been a meteorologist if he hadn't, you know, hung on in football. He's a very smart guy and knows his weather, and he would check weather religiously. And
you walk in the locker room, he's got like charts and everything.
He absolutely does.
It's a full-on meteorology setup.
Yes, and you know, Ryan Stonehouse has been preparing. He's working before, during, and after practice with, you know, holds and doing wet ball drills. Of course, the whole team's been doing that. You know, with the forecast that looks like crap for Sunday.
Wear a poncho.
Wear a poncho, or at least bring one. Yeah, and just how he's working on. You know, in golf terms, I said, you know, you've got the driver. You're working on the sand wedge and all the other clubs in the bag for the 50-plus punts and, you know, all the short area stuff. And he said, that's exactly where I'm at. I feel like I get better every day, every practice. And he said, you know, the hang time is something I worked on for a long time. Now I'm working on, you know, what do they say in golf? Drive for show, putt for dough.
That's right.
And so he's trying to sink the putts.
And you can hear that as a part of Titans Countdown, which will be extended this Sunday since it was a 3:25 kick. Lee Company Countdown to kick off at noon. Titans Radio with Titans Countdown will take over at 2.
Yep.
And Jim Wyatt and I and Rhett will talk about the game about 15 minutes before kickoff,
That's right.
as is the custom.
Yes, indeed.
Did you see Stonehouse after practice catching field goal holds off the jugs machine? I hadn't seen that before.
No. I hadn't seen that either. No.
I mean, there's so many, it's such a specific thing for us to drill down on, but of course football is not, I think I've heard Coach Mack use this analogy before, so let me not act like it's an original thought, but football is not difficult. It's just incredibly detailed. That is the kind of thing that you wouldn't even think about in most normal circumstances. Like if you walked by Ryan Stonehouse catching at a weird angle off the jugs machine, you probably wouldn't think about it other than to recognize that, oh, that's the punter. He's new here. That's probably going to be a thing for him.
Yeah.
That is something that I had not considered until I saw it in real time. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and to your point, the last couple of days I've been out there, he's been out before everybody else. He's been with one of the equipment guys, and they have the jugs machine that shoots the footballs out. They have one that's just a small one that simulates a long snap so he can place it for the hold for Randy Bullock. And he's been working on that every day. Okay. And he said that's basically what he was doing the last 2 weeks since training camp broke and the last preseason game was over. And it's just working on all of the mechanics of those things, the details, as you say.
So when it comes to details, there's a lot of different elements for both sides that I think it's just been speculation, as is the custom for every football season. You go in, we are hugely familiar with the personnel. We know the coaching staff here in Tennessee, and we know largely what this thing is going to look like. But still, until we see it take place, there's a lot of questions that have yet to be answered. For example, Treylon Burks' role in this offense and how he kind of factors in with Nick Westbrook-Akina and Robert Woods and Kyle Phillips looking to get the bulk of the work. That factor, X factor, if you want to call it that, or just the unknown of what Treylon Burks is to this system just yet, is one of the things that I'm most curious about, Rhett. But as you watch this and as you guys are processing this in real time in the Titans radio booth, what kind of things that you don't have answers to yet are you looking to learn from Sunday's game?
Well, and I don't know that we're going to see it Sunday, but, if you notice throughout training camp, they lined him up at the X receiver position on the outside. And I think that's a lot just to get him acclimated, to get his feet wet. And I'm not saying he can't run routes. The difference in him running routes right now and Kyle Phillips right now are two different things.
And he didn't have to in college.
That's exactly right. It's no fault of his at all. So, and I think the biggest thing is you just want him to block when he needs to block. You want him to get open when he needs to get open and catch the doggone football when it's time to do that. That's the three things they ask receivers to do. And I think once you start seeing that and you start seeing the physicality after the catch, because we've been used to, A.J. Brown, I think some of that stuff will die down a bit. And, the main thing is staying on the field, and he's working through some things with, little dings and injuries and things. And so, I think you're just wanting to see some base of consistency to start out. And then, if he stacks a good game, let's go to the next one, see what happens.
Rhett Bryan, executive producer for Titans Radio, in studio with us. At Rhett B Tennessee is where you can follow him. And, of course, they'll have coverage starting at 2 p.m. with Titans Countdown before the kickoff at 3:25 with Rhett, Mac, Mike, Amy, the whole crew at Nissan Stadium. And by the way, if you want to ask Rhett a question, because he's a very, very knowledgeable individual, we can do that. 615-737-1045.
Checks in the mail.
What is Saquon Barkley to you at this point in his career?
A guy that had some good foundational performances early on, went through a myriad of injuries, I think is healthy now, hungry now, pissed off for lack of a better term, and wants to go out and earn himself another contract at some point down the road. And I think in Brian Daboll's offense, I think you're going to see a steady diet of him coming at this Titans defense. And it's not just in the run part of it. I mean, he's going to be a receiver out of the backfield. He's even lobbying the special teams coach to return, like he did at Penn State.
Well, he doesn't lack for confidence.
No, not at all. But, the dude's a stud now, and if he's healthy, that's a scary proposition. So, I mean, that's going to be game plan number one in this. And I heard you talking in the previous segment in the 11 o'clock hour. Daniel Jones is something that, Coach Vrabel's been talking about all week, is his ability to escape the pocket and run, both on design runs and on just off-schedule plays. I mean, the guy's got an 80-yard run in his career. There aren't many running backs that have an 80-yard run in their career. So, I mean, there's those things, and then you start peppering in who's at wide receiver and Wan'Dale Robinson and how you can gadget him. There's some things that they're going to have to figure out.
See, I also felt like that about Saquon, that he's legitimate. And we had Bud Dupree on the radio show yesterday. He said Saquon is not a fluke. Saquon is an animal. Mm-hmm. And there have been moments where in his career that's been true. But, Rhett, I went back and watched him throughout the course of this week. He was so ineffective, and their offensive line that they feel that they have fortified significantly.
And there's 4 out of 5 new starters in that deal.
Important to note, there's projected 13 total new starters alongside a new coaching staff, which is why this projects as such an unknown opponent, even though you know the personnel and you've played against these coaches before. 3.7 yards per carry. Not efficient behind that offensive line, but he was 41st among qualified running backs last year when it came to yards after contact per attempt. Like the explosiveness and more importantly, beyond the explosiveness, the sustainability of him throughout the course of a game is something that I have significant questions about. Now, maybe that's always been who Saquon is. Like, he can break one off at any point, but if you're going to, like, he's not Derrick. Derrick is almost the polar
and are you
opposite of what I'm
biased
describing.
because of that? Right.
I think I might be.
You know, because we have seen this guy just fourth quarter, he just gets better and better and just hammers other people.
And it turns out not everybody's like that.
Yeah, he's kind of the anomaly in that.
So I think that's, you know, I have as many questions about Saquon individually as I do about the Giants on offense. 615-737-1045. Bam is in Nashville, wants to talk about the Giants and Titans. Hello, Bam.
What's good? Everybody doing all right?
We're doing
good,
great.
Bam, and you?
Man, I'm good, man. Get ready for this weekend, man. Excited for this weekend.
Yes.
Excited to be back in Nissan Stadium. Of course I'm excited about seeing, you know, how the Titans look, the offense. For me, personally, I really want to see what Tim Kelly, or how do y'all feel like Tim Kelly is going to help this passing game and be of assistance to that? That's really the biggest thing for me. I kind of got an idea of what we're going to look like, but what do y'all think Tim Kelly's going to bring to this offensive, or how do you think him and Ryan will be able to coexist together and, you know, make the offense not go 3 and out? That's the biggest thing. I don't want to see us go 3 and out.
All right, Bam. Thanks for the call. I'll say this. We've seen a little different things at Titans practice. Now that it is closed, I'm sure there's some real interesting things that we are not able to see. So that remains to be seen until they run out of the tunnel on Sunday. But I'll say this, and I've said it all offseason. The acquisition of Austin Hooper, I think, is huge. The drafting of Chig Okonkwo is huge, because I think, you know, we know how they use tight ends in this offense, how they use him under some influence of a Tim Kelly. We'll see how that goes. But those are the things. He
spends a tremendous amount of time with the tight ends.
Yeah, he does. And so I think that's where it starts if I'm looking for a place to see some new wrinkles, right? And the athleticism in that department, and again, no slight towards Jeff Swaim at all, because he's a great blocker, and that's what he does, and he's able to go out and make you a play occasionally. But, you know, Chig and Austin, we've seen it all spring and summer. There's something good there going on. And with number 17, with Ryan Tannehill.
Well, they've had the reps for that to become crisp and efficient.
Exactly. And so I just feel like there's a safety valve to begin with to get extra yardage and chains and move chains. But I think there's a place to grow from that to have some serious explosive plays come out of the deal. While this other deal with the wide receivers, I mean, I think we know who Robert Woods is. I think we know who Kyle Phillips is. And, you know, we're still in Nick Westbrook-Akine. But, you know, how it all works together, we're going to find out. But I think you'll start to see some things that Tim Kelly may have an influence there that get us all excited, and certainly we hope that's the case.
Here's the problem with that, Bam, and for anybody else who is interested in Tim Kelly, because he was a big talking point this summer, and then it kind of not went by the wayside, but I think in terms of public consciousness, it just kind of faded because we don't get to talk to him. He has coordinator in the title, but we don't get to speak to him as we do with Shane Bowen, Todd Downing, and Craig Aukerman, who are the other 3 coordinators on the staff. So I wish I had a better concrete answer for you, but I will tell you where I want his influence to be felt. Rhett, I so desperately want them to throw more on first down. I think if there's any kind of growth as an offense for the sustainability to just make life a little easier on Derrick as you figure out this offensive line, first down is quantifiably the most efficient opportunity for you to pass and for you to not end up in so many 3rd and longs as they played so many last year, because it was their best option, right?
Yeah.
I would like to see the influence, if that is going to be the case. I would like to see it just with an extra set of eyes on their first down packages or concepts or whatever the case may be, to try
and then taking a look at what looks they're getting across from them.
Exactly right, because he's been a coordinator. He understands defense the same way that Todd Downing does, and Mike Vrabel does, because Mike is one of the smarter coaches in the NFL. But I want to see that improved efficiency, particularly on early downs, because that was something they lacked for last year.
And listen, in a game where, again, the weather doesn't look great, we know that, you know, Derrick Henry getting off to the start they need is key in this, and maybe there's something there that helps create that in a passing situation on some first downs.
At Rhett B. Tennessee is where you follow him. He and the Titans radio crew, they're fired up for game day.
Yes,
they're
we
fired
are.
up to bring you the best team broadcast in the business. There is no disputing.
Your check's in the mail, Buck.
No, listen, you know me. You saw me barking at Lucas during the commercial break. You know I don't say nice things unless people have earned
that's
it.
true. That's true.
So you know that it comes from a genuine place, Red, if nothing else. Genuine one way or the other.
Thanks for having me. We're looking forward to it this weekend, and I'm ready to listen to some Delanie Walker next. It's going to be good.
That's coming up next. I'll see you in the booth on Sunday, buddy.
All right, bud.
Delanie Walker, that's next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Back here on 104.5 The Zone, Titans game week. Season opener coming up against the New York Giants, and always a great pleasure to be able to have the opportunity to catch up with one of the franchise greats, former tight end Delanie Walker, with us here now on the show. What's happening?
I'm good. How you doing? Thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, of course. Listen, anytime. Delanie, you are one of the most interesting human beings that I had the opportunity to cover during your time in this locker room. By the way, Delanie here on behalf of NFL Plus. It's the league's exclusive video streaming platform, available in the NFL app across all app stores for $4.99 a month or $39.99 a year. What's life look like these days?
Man, a lot of free time. I can say that. I have a lot of free time, but pretty much, just enjoying this free time, enjoying the time I get to spend with my family, doing things I wasn't able to do because, playing football was my job. It was all I cared about at that time. So I'm just dabbling, trying to figure out what's next, what's the next chapter, and pretty much doing it at a slow pace.
Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I mean, especially with the amount of time that you guys commit coming up through every level of football, Delanie. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to have that freedom, for lack of a better term. Obviously, you enjoy the game and it has great rewards for the time that you spend in it, but to have that freedom on the back end to just pick and choose what you want to do on a regular basis.
Very true, and my birthday falls in August, so most of the time I was in training camp or I was training for football, so I really never got to celebrate my birthday. So that was one thing I did, celebrate my birthday almost for the first time since I wasn't in camp. So, just like you said, you got so much free time and you don't kind of lose yourself because football was like everything to me, and I know other guys that's in the same situation probably feel the same way. When you take something that you do every day, 8 hours out the day, and you live, breathe, and play football, and then once you stop, you got to figure out something else to keep your time and keep you out of trouble.
I'm sure there's more than one teammate who can identify with that last bit for sure. Looking at like what this is now here in Nashville, Delanie. One of the things that I respect about the way that you approached your craft throughout the course of your time here is it was not always easy to kind of bring that steady approach and that same passion on a regular basis, given what the results would end up being in any given season. Obviously, things started to trend in a better direction towards the end, but looking at your time here during the bulk of your career as a Titan and now seeing kind of the steps that you helped put them on now with Mike Vrabel kind of getting them in the right direction and some of the guys who you know very well still being foundational pieces of that, what do you make of kind of the transformation this has undergone?
Like you said, when I started, it wasn't easy when I became a Titan, but that's what we do. When you go into an organization and you try to turn it into something great and build with the coaches, with the ownership, with your teammates. And that's what we did. All the guys I played with and the guys that's still there, that's what they were striving for, to build something great. We paved the way. We paved that concrete. We paved that road to where that success that they had. But honestly, Mike Vrabel and John Robertson, everything that they've been doing with the guys that they brung in, Amy, the ownership, it's been great. I'm excited. I love seeing that. I love hearing the energy around the city. I love seeing that we getting talked about on these sport channels and ESPN and NFL Network. When I see that, it shows me everything that I put in and blood, sweat, and tears. It wasn't for nothing because I see the Titans is moving up and they doing what I wanted to do. So I'm proud of them, and I just hope they keep going.
Delanie Walker, former Titans tight end, here with us on 104.5 The Zone on behalf of NFL Plus. We'll get to that with Delanie here in just a second. I mean, the pride that you must take, Delanie, in Derrick Henry in particular. I know there's several of your teammates who are still around, but just seeing what Derrick has become and how much of that turnaround has been predicated off of his success and his ability. I wonder how you kind of view him and what you've been able to see him do both as a teammate and now as an observer.
Honestly, when I played, and he can vouch for this, I used to say, if we want to win, put Derrick in. I used to say that all the time. Anytime we started losing, because I was there when we drafted Derrick, and I said it when I saw Derrick still sitting in the green room. I'm like, we're gonna get Derrick Henry. Watch, we're gonna get Derrick Henry, and I knew it, and I knew what he could be. I know his first few years he didn't show that, but I knew what he could be. He just needed to run the ball more, and he's my favorite player. I tell everybody to this day, Derrick Henry is my favorite player. If Derrick spin, we gonna win, and I say that all the time. But honestly, we still need the other 10 guys that's on offense around him to make him even better, and that's what they do. Our offensive line does a great job blocking for him. Our quarterback puts them in the best situation, and our receivers got to make plays downfield for Derrick Henry to be successful. But again, like you said, a lot of the success has came from Derrick Henry, and we're gonna need that again this year.
It's been so interesting to watch kind of that evolution, because you and Marcus obviously had tremendous success during your time together. That connection was always something that could be relied upon. We saw it kind of the same with Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown when they were working together as Titans teammates. Now to see, though, Marcus with another opportunity under your guy Arthur Smith, that has to get you in your feels a little bit, I would imagine.
Man, I'm just excited, to see him and Marcus and Arthur reconnect and get things going again. And I know what type of player Marcus can be. He's made me a great player. Together we made each other great. And they got another young tight end over there, man, that's been doing his thing. His first year had 1,000 yards. Now I think he's going to do that, but he also get more touchdowns. So I'm excited to see what them two do with each other, especially with Arthur under the helm and running that team. And I always want him to be successful at the end of the day. So them are two teams I'm going to be watching, mostly the Titans, but I will watch the Atlanta Falcons a few times. But, again, I'm excited to see what he does over there with Atlanta.
The tight end they got, Pitts, he's a fire-breathing dragon, Delanie. The evolution of your position over the time that you were in the league and now seeing some of the guys that are coming out now, and certainly the way that defenses approach the tight ends, it seems so different. And I have to imagine for a lot of these guys, I'm sure you experienced this, the amount of defenders that go low on these players because they have no other way to kind of handle them. A defensive back is just so physically outmatched against a lot of these tight ends in the league right now. I'm sure that's something that you had to be cognizant of during your time and something that these guys are obviously having to prepare for on a regular basis.
True. I mean, when I came in the league and playing that tight end position, you was more like a extra left tackle or right tackle that can catch the ball and had a little bit of speed. And it obviously started to evolve year by year as I got older. But you got to remember the rules changed with the hitting policy. When I first played, people just would take your head off because it wasn't no fine, wasn't no problem with that. But as the years went on, they changed the rules, so it was pretty much hitting up high, and that gave the defenders the confidence to just dive at our legs now. And even though if we're not looking or trying to take our knees out or take our ankles out, so yeah, that was something you have to evolve with, knowing that the game is going that way. That's things you're gonna have to start worrying about is guys really trying to dive at your ankles, especially if you are a guy that can run with the ball, a guy that's very physical. That's the only answer they have is to try to take your knees out or your ankles out because they do not want to find.
Former Titans tight end Delanie Walker, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. I texted a couple of your teammates today, Delanie, to figure out if there was one question that I had to ask you since we rarely get the opportunity to talk with you. And one of the texts I got back was, I'm supposed to ask you if you've thrown out the lucky socks that you would wear every game day that had holes in them, or if you are still keeping them around.
So when the Titans released me, I wasn't able to go back to the locker room.
No.
So. Yeah, so they just sent me my stuff. They sent me my stuff there, and I guess people went through my locker, so I don't know, because I ain't get half the stuff that I had in my locker.
No, there has to be some kind of investigation now. We got to find these socks.
Got to find the socks. I'm sure it was probably still in the game, one of my games pouches or whatever, because they never brung that back. They kept them in the game one, so because I never took them out, I just kept them in my game bag, because they was my lucky game socks. And so whoever asked that, no, I did not get them socks back. I was missing a hats, some shoes, cleats. I get it, cats, when you leave, you ain't there. Cats gonna go and take the extra stuff. So I did not get them socks back.
I'm gonna betray a confidence. It was Lawan, and that's probably the culprit of who stole the socks or who threw them away.
Could have been. They probably like, who wear these holy socks?
Delanie, man, what do Titans fans need to know about NFL Plus and the work that you're doing with them?
Pretty much they need to know is that NFL Plus gives fans the freedom to watch NFL games wherever they are. With NFL Plus, fans can watch every local primetime Thursday night football, Sunday night football, and Monday night football regular season or postseason games on their phone or tablet. Also, it's available for a cost-friendly price for $4.99 a month or $39.99 a year. But if they want to get deeper into this, they can get the NFL Plus Premium, where fans can also get game replays, all 22 coaches' films for $9.99 a month or $7.99 a year. And I got it. I watch it all the time when I'm not able to be at home. I'm either on my tablet or my phone, and I'm watching the Titans. I'm looking at scores, watching the previews just to try to see my guys. I love seeing the two-tone blue doing anything positive, winning games mostly. But you check it out. NFL Plus is there in your hands. You can watch it wherever you at, and it's just a great app to have.
Man, that read, you're going to run me out the business. That sounds like somebody who used to have a radio show on this station.
No, man. You know me. I have it in my bag if I really want to do it. I just been laying low, just letting the Titans be the Titans. I hate to be a distraction, and that's why I don't do a lot of interviews, because I want the Titans to be successful, and I never want to be a distraction to the team.
Well, certainly you're thought of so highly here, Delanie, and we always appreciate the opportunity to catch up. Thank you for spending some time. It's good to chat again, my guy. Been a long time.
It's been a long time, and thanks for having me. It's always good to hear your voice, man. You got that great radio voice.
Delanie, it's the only thing I got. I can't catch passes. I can't do nothing else. I can talk for a living. That's all.
Awesome.
That's Delanie Walker, former Titans tight end, with us on 104.5 The Zone. That guy is so unique for a variety of different reasons. I was hoping that he would expand a little more when I asked him, what's life look like these days? Because do you follow him on Instagram?
I don't think so.
This dude's all over the place. He's all over the place and experiencing all kinds of different things. He has that kind of spirit that would lend itself to going out and taking advantage of the fact that he does actually have the time to live a really, really unique life after football. And, of course, he was an absolute force on the field while he was here. But in the meantime, since we're talking Titans, why don't we give away a pair of tickets to the Titans and the Giants on Sunday? That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. We have a pair of tickets to send you to Nissan Stadium this weekend. Caller number 5 right now will win 2 tickets to see the Titans host the New York Giants this Sunday at Nissan Stadium. Plus, I didn't see this, plus 2 tickets to the Titans VIP tailgate at the Bridge Building, thanks to Bullseye Event Group, where Ron Slay is, of course, hosting the party. 615-737-1045. Caller number 5 gets a pair of Titans tickets. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. hour and the noon hour, I have a funeral to attend, unfortunately. So it will inevitably turn into the Lucas Panzica Show.
I am sorry to hear that. I know it was the mother of one of your closest friends,
Does it
right?
make you feel good to know that death is what's bringing about the Lucas Panzica Show?
Don't do that.
What do you mean?
that.
You did it. You're the one trying to get me to cut promos that way.
What am I supposed to do with that? So anyway, here's what we'll be doing.
You know why I did that to you? Because bleep you in the Lucas Panzica Show.
I would have done the same thing. Derrick has given us a 9.8 for the day.
No, he said not for the day. He said for the part of the show that I watched.
Still.
If he watched the full 3 hours, it could be a load of crap. It could be like a 5.5. Now, speaking of unfortunate circumstances, Queen Elizabeth passed away. Well, I don't know if this has been since we've been on the air, but this is something. I mean, she was 96 years old. She's England's longest tenured ruler. And the royal family, like, I know there's a fascination with it. I've never myself understood it. I do understand, though, how big a financial impact, how much people consume the royal family is for the United Kingdom. Lucas, there's a clip on Kevin Nagandi's Twitter timeline right now. It looks like it's about 30 seconds. I think it might be worth playing before we do the polls. You're looking at me funny, like you don't want to pay tribute to Queen Elizabeth? What are you looking at me for?
Nothing. I just did not have us using Sports Center anchor Kevin Nagandi audio on Queen Elizabeth today.
Okay, I'm sorry it wasn't on your bingo card. Let me hear the story about Queen Elizabeth.
And normally on these picnic sites, you meet nobody. But there was two hikers coming towards us, and the Queen would always stop and say hello. And it was two Americans on a walking holiday. And it was clear from the moment that we first stopped, they hadn't recognised the Queen, which is fine. And the American gentleman was telling the Queen where he came from, where they were going to next, and where they'd been to in Britain. And I could see it coming, and sure enough, he said to Her Majesty, "And where do you live?" And she said, "Well, I live in London, but I've got a holiday home just the other side of the hills." And he said, "Well, how often have you been coming up here?" "Oh," she said, "I've been coming up here ever since I was a little girl, so over 80 years. And you could see the clogs thinking. He said, "Well, if you've been coming up here for 80 years, you must have met the Queen." And as quick as a flash says, "Well, I haven't, but Dick here meets her regularly." So the guy said to me, "Oh, you've met the Queen, what's she like?" And because I was with her a long time and I knew I could pull a leg, I said, "Oh, she can be very cantankerous at times, but she's got a lovely sense of humour." Anyway, the next thing I knew, this guy comes around, puts his arm around my shoulder, and before I could see what was happening, he gets his camera, gives it to the Queen, and says, "Can you take a picture of the two of us?" Anyway, we swapped places, and I took a picture of them with the Queen, and we never let on, and we waved goodbye. And then Her Majesty said to me, "I'd love to be a fly on the wall when he shows those photographs to the friends in America, and hopefully someone tells him who I am."
That is pretty funny.
See? Isn't it worth it? Aren't you glad we played the Queen Elizabeth sound?
I am, yes.
All right. Now give me the polls when something that I'm sure is hugely disrespectful.
Hello, my number 4, Rats. There is a show in America called Buck Rising.
Oh, damn it.
I like very much. As a man named Lucas, like my producer, Azam Bagatov, will update something called Final Pollings. I'm very excited, very excited. Do it, Lucas. La, 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 la.
It's just so you just completely undermine me with Borat.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They deliver it right to you when it's manufactured. How many AFC teams are Super Bowl contenders? Puka says 7. Brooks says 9. All 4 AFC West teams: Colts, Titans, Bills, Ravens, Bengals.
That's only one more than I had. I had them at 8. 2 from each division is how I tried to narrow it down. I had the Broncos outside looking in if we were doing this bracket style.
Should horns down be a penalty in a game against Texas? 94% say no.
Mike Herndon, our resident Texas fan, what was his explanation on Twitter? I think it's probably worth reading.
Yeah, he said, no, it shouldn't be. None of us care about it. It's flattering. Hating us is the primary identity of so many schools.
So who gets bent out of shape about horns down? Because it's like a phenomenon on the internet.
Some people do. Like, I heard Sam Acho when he sat down with 3HL on Radio Row in the Super Bowl. That Slay kind of did it, and he got actually upset.
Buddy, I was there. I was there. They were.
Oh, you were there for that interview?
They were recording that interview while I was still on the air that they played. It was very, very uncomfy.
Well, they take it personally.
All right, Sam Acho.
Who is starting at quarterback for Clemson by the end of the season? Cade Klubnik or DJ Uiagalelei? 75% go with Klubnik.
Yeah, Klubnik, I mean, listen, it's easier to look better against reserves the way that Cade Klubnik did, but I would say that he clearly looks like the more efficient and decisive, frankly, quarterback. Too many mistakes from DJ. But their offensive line, I maintain, is going to be a problem for Clemson all year long.
Which national title-winning head coach is Dabo Swinney more similar to, Saban or Coach Orgeron? 57% say Ed Orgeron.
I see. Oh, it's closer margins, but I bet you didn't have Ed O winning the majority.
He's like neither. Do you wish Jameis Winston was your biology teacher? 59% say yes.
No, we didn't play the Ed O sound. We had good Jameis sound today. We didn't play Ed Orgeron at the touchdown club. Maybe we do that tomorrow.
Yeah, we got to use that audio.
All right.
What is the one off-season topic you are most excited to not have to talk about during football season? Haley says Baker versus Browns.
Well, if that's our friend Haley Murphy,
yes.
Yeah, she's a noted Browns fan, so I understand her need or her want to move on from this. I would have said A.J. Brown, but they play A.J. and the Eagles at Philadelphia in Week 13, so inevitably we're going to be talking about A.J. again.
A.J. with his always open sign in his locker.
We didn't talk about it today.
We did not.
Credit to us.
Sam says overhearing about AJ, so he agrees with that. Dylan says Jimmy G.
I think the Jimmy G stuff is interesting. I find it even more interesting that he ended up staying, because that's got to be a weird dynamic in the locker room, but whatever.
Karen says baseball, which I respect.
That's mean. You don't have to care about baseball again until October, because football, it's back. Wait, do we have the sound? Since it's officially here, do we have it? Give it to me. Ah, damn it.
Football.